Every now and then someone reaches out to me and says, hey, I'm using Napkin and it's great to reflect ideas, but how does it work? Like, how are you picking ideas? How are you curating those flows? And what do you mean when you say Napkin is dreaming? And this is a bit of a behind the scenes video about how we are doing this. So to understand it, we have to come from what do we want to achieve? And what we want to achieve is easily collecting ideas and then in the most inspiring, insightful possible way, reflect them again. And if you would imagine you are writing your ideas on little note cards and you would just put them in a register so you can look at one after the other, you would reflect them, but it's kind of a boring flashcard system. So it would be more interesting if you would have a system that shows the ideas to you that are close to each other and that have overlaps or connections or describing somehow the same topic. And what we are doing in Napkin because of that is we are positioning the ideas. So you could imagine you're taking your cards and you're arranging them on the floor. So maybe you have like focus over there and intuition or strength over here, and then you are putting the ideas there. But of course, an idea has many possible topics, and on two-dimensional space, pretty quickly it gets crowded and you don't really know, should I put it over here or should I put it over there? If you had a third dimension, it would be easier. You could say, well, it's over this one and it's also connected to that one, which is kind of like over here. And what is happening in your Napkin account is in your server, like in the store data for your account, there is a multi-dimensional space with hundreds of dimensions, and every new idea is put in there and is then compared with all the other ideas. And then Napkin is also saying, okay, there's a cluster of ideas on a few dimensions over here. How could we call that cluster? And then it looks for single words that could describe that cluster. And for example, if we're looking at the screen here, strength might be one of those words. So when I'm tapping this, what happens is it goes to the spot in n-dimensional space for strength, and then it looks about what cards are around that and shows them here. And for every single card that I'm seeing, I also, below the card, have those other topics. So in this case, mastery, joy, courage. And that means that this card on other dimensions, again, if multiple dimensions are combined, is close to, for example, courage. So I can tap courage now, and then I'm seeing cards related to courage. And that way I can jump from space to space to space. In other words, from topic to topic to topic. And we think that helps massively to just whatever I collect from a podcast, from a book, from wherever, to see those connections and to, in my brain, then also more easily make those hops and see those patterns and just, yeah, think more quickly as well. There's one more thing. If I'm tapping on a topic and I've just seen strength, for example, and I would now tap on inspiration, it would be boring if I would see ideas again that I've just seen. So whenever we like jump to a certain topic and look at what cards are close to that, we are getting kind of like maybe 30 cards close to that, but we only want to show 5. So we are picking the ones that you haven't seen in the longest time. So in your private registry, there is kind of the logs in your app about what cards did you see, what ideas did you look at, and then when seeing new ones, we pick ideas that you haven't seen in the last days or in the last weeks. That's also why sometimes if you add a new idea, you pretty quickly see it again, but that's on purpose because I think when I'm listening to a podcast in the evening, in the morning, I'm opening Napkin to reflect ideas. It's good if I see that idea, and then I see other ideas that might augment that idea and give new perspectives to it. Now we know about the topics. If I'm tapping your flow, it also goes in the n-dimensional space, and it's more driven by what ideas didn't you see in a long time. So if I'm, for whatever reason, always tapping belief or power on my home screen, but I've also read really interesting stuff on maybe nature, then your flow shows me those ideas. And it just kind of hops through that space and pulls the ideas together that I didn't see in a long time. And the last thing that I think is interesting is how does dreaming work and what do we mean with it? So let's imagine you are for a certain period super duper obsessed with ideas on structure, like how do I get structure in my life? And you, in this phase, you also start using Napkin and you're adding a lot of ideas on structure there. So it would pull them together, and your personal space of ideas would be very dominated by that topic. And then you go on holiday, and afterwards, suddenly spiritualism is very interesting. And you read a book on spiritual ideas and you add them to your napkin. And if you add those ideas, immediately Napkin would say, well, I'm not really sure where to put that because there is no space open for this area yet. And I'm also not really knowing how should find associations to the existing ideas. And therefore, roughly once a day, your napkin is dreaming. And that means it looks at all the ideas that you have in that space, and it kind of sorts them out, rearranges them a little bit, also adds new topics. So it adds new of those like signposts in your space that we can grab and say, let's look at ideas close to them. And therefore it always warps and adjusts to what you're currently curious about, which also then helps for generating my flow and suggesting inspiring topics on your home screen. And I think that is already it. Like it's not so hard. You just try to build something that is emerging and works roughly like a brain would as well, always fluidly adjusting to what you're curious about, to make it really easy and joyful to reflect those good ideas that you come across, and then also to connect them as good as possible to your existing knowledge. So your brain can kind of like easily digest and build new associations. And then in the end, when you look at the world, it will be stronger colored by what you selected as good ideas that should have a good influence and a strong impact on your life. If you have any ideas on how to improve that or how to change that, please always just chat us up. There's a chat button inside the app. And of course, we're also really grateful for all the people helping us to build this, because it's really driven by what we think should be there in the world. And we are extremely grateful that we can build that based on the people having a subscription, buying a lifetime plan to say, like, support it even more strongly. And therefore, all the rest, stay inspired and talk soon.